Nice.
Settled down.
And education. I'm sorry.
Education.
Education. So,
I like.
okay. And then any other? So any idea about the basic requirement for Australia? Like what exactly it is?
I believe it varies for the way, like if you are going for job opportunities, it first, and if you go for education, it first. And my search here is a job opportunities.
Sure.
IELTS is the
You are into
IT professional.
you're into IT, very good. Because yeah, definitely because people are actually into IT engineering and I would say hospitality industry and teaching and what we call this one accountants who are actually who got BCom and MCom and then CA. So these profiles are actually most preferred for Australia because we have I would say we have very good requirement, but only the thing is that until unless we don't apply with that with it, so it is not it will not come to us. So we need to do the documentation process and we need to lodge our application. Then only we will be able to get success. Because when we talk about Australia, the major benefits where generally most of the people actually look at. Forget about the job and all. Yeah, definitely job is one of the important criteria what we need to actually look at. But apart from that, there are major benefits, I would say. The very first benefit, it is called multiple entry. Multiple entry, you can go a number of times. There is no restriction at all. There is the visa that is going to be valid for 4 years. In this 4 years, if you are staying, again you need to stay for 4 years. Therefore, you can get the citizenship. And once you become a citizen, then you will be having a lot of benefits. Whatever the benefits what you're going to get as a PR holder, so you're also going to get more benefits from this permanent residency. And apart from that, the third benefit I would say it's a spouse visa. Like for example, I'm married and I got the visa. Then if I go to Australia, then if my spouse is also able to work, she got education and work experience, then she definitely she can also work over there. That's legal.
On the PR?
Yes, on the PR itself. And apart from that, you also have a educational benefits. I would say like your kids can have free education till 18 years in government schools and the colleges. But that what we call when we for example I am married and my wife is carrying, then when I actually my kid is going to born over there in Australia, by default he becomes a citizen of Australia. So he will be getting more benefits than a PR holder what I have. Apart from this, you will be having medical benefits throughout the lifetime for your entire family. And when you go there, obviously, like if you are working in India, so you can imagine, right? So everything we need to make here. Maybe if you are studying in government schools and colleges, that's a different story. But if you want to find better education, then we need to pay for it. But there, you will be having a very good education, and that's in government schools and the colleges. So that is one of the benefits what we can actually have. Yeah.
Okay. To start off, I want to give you a little bit of my background with Y-Axis. I've been with Y-Axis since 2007. It's been a very long journey with Y-Axis. Now, the reason why I like to say this again and again is because, see, this industry is a very small industry. It's all about service. Today we're talking to each other, we just know each other for the first time, and then it's about being associated with each other. It's about your career, it's about how we are going to take it forward from here, and it's all about the two of us conversing. Of course, Y-Axis as a brand, as a company, we've started off 1999, we've gone big way, but whatever be it, it's all about, and it is very important for me to tell you that it's because we are happy that we are able to make the others happy. And happiness here is not about buying a product and feeling it and touching it and saying, okay, I like this phone, I'm using it. It's a faith which you need to build with the system. It's a faith which you need to build with our successes, because if that is not going to be there, then it is going to be extremely difficult for any of us to take this process further and understand what we are going to do for you, what we can do for you. See, like we said, the whole idea of today's gathering is to tell you what an RMA agent can do for you if you are interested in going and getting yourself into education in Australia, or whether you want to relocate to Australia. Okay, that is one part of it. Now, why associate with y-axis? That's most important, because if you don't know why you're going to associate with y-axis, then because you cannot go and buy this from anybody overnight. It's not like you can go to the counter, pay some money, and then you say, yes, my visa is there, and taking it. So it is very important for you to know why you need to associate with any organization like this. And I can very proudly tell you that the reason why I think that you should consider y-axis, you should consider after understanding, is because we have an amazing team of research which happens. We have more than about 110 people in the research department, and believe it, we spend about close to 2.5 lakhs per month only on research. Now, by doing this knowledge, what we are able to build in or accumulate in this from this research department is being parted with in the form of an application. It's no rocket science to do any application, honestly. It's your hard-earned documents. Nothing has come free for you. I am not able to buy anything and give it to you because you've given me the money. It is just that you are giving it to me and I have to compile them. But if I don't compile them and don't put them as an easy, ready reckoner, especially probably you have one step benefit if you go through a RMA agent, because even if the case officer has some doubts, some clarity, having worked with the RMA agent in different applications, he may probably want to pick up the phone or write him an email and ask him what is this all about. But if it comes to you making an application on your own, or I making it for you on your behalf as y-axis, nobody is going to ask us any doubts. It's easier for him to keep your paper away and take somebody else, because he has no dearth for applications. He has no dearth for applications. So why would you want to clarify and then figure out, because there is a demand-supply issue here, so there is no need for him to so much worry. When there is as much supply for him, he need not really call you, wait for a response and then okay your application. Would rather keep it aside and ask you to make a re-application or an appeal or whatever you want to do. You agree with me? So then what happens, it is important for you to associate with somebody who has an expertise in this, who knows what they're doing, who has been doing this day in and day out, where this is, as much as ethics is never compromised, we have to follow those systems and processes, and by now, we know what he understands and what he does not understand. We know what he wants and what he does not want. If I'm going to give him more than what he wants, it is not going to be easy for him to go through that file and make an application and come with an outcome. So that is what is going to be most important for us to for you to decide as to why you have to choose an agent to represent your application. Let it be any application. It could be a basic visit visa. It sounds very simple. It's all there in the web today. You just have to go to the site and there is nothing there's no information. In fact, I wouldn't say that we get more information than you get. What you read is what I read and both of us understand the same. But I think our understanding gets a little different because we know how it is. By now we are tuned, because we've been doing so many of it. I give you a very interesting example which just happened to me, day before yesterday. I wouldn't call it a story because it is somebody's sad story, so it is not like, but then you just need to know how things can make a small difference. Australia again, this gentleman apparently was working since 2000, and he needed 8 years of work experience to show in his application to claim 15 points. For those of you who know how Australia works, for your experience, you need to have 15 points, more than 8 years of work experience, right? Okay. Now, he has worked only in 2 organizations. I believe he started in 2000, worked till 2010 or 2011 in one organization. Then in 2012 or something, he started off in another organization and worked for another 6-7 years. It didn't come to 8 years, that is what I'm trying to tell you, the second leg. Now, since it didn't come to 8 years and he was running short of 1 year to make that 8 years, he had to go back to his earlier organization, which he had started way back in 2000. Okay. Now, he went back to his HR. They welcomed him because he was not fabricating or manipulating or taking documents. Which what happens, especially in our country, the trend is not to give you a letter, or we don't need it, we don't ask for it also. Nobody gets a letter when you leave an organization as to what you did with that designation. So you get a relieving letter. It tells you that you were an analyst programmer. But as analyst programmer, what did you do? Were you repairing machines, or were you making programs, or whatever you were doing is what the job description is not given to you or handed over to you when you are leading an organization, and that is not a practice, so we also don't ask for it, correct? But apparently now when you want to make an application like this, that becomes most important, correct? You need a letter, you need to know what you did, what were the jobs which you have been delivering during this time. Now when these things become important, he seems to have gone back to this organization. They seem to have taken very good care of him because he's a very old employee who started off in 2000. So now, everything went well for him, but I guess momentary lapse of reasoning that someone seems to have asked him from the HR department, do you want a current dated letter or a pre-dated letter? Now the website only tells you that I need a letter. It's not going to ask you what kind of letter you want. Now this is a very normal question, asking him whether you want a current dated letter or pre-dated letter. Now I don't know, I didn't go into details because that was not what was needed at that time. It's not like whether he went through an agent and somebody misguided him, or guided him but then it went wrong. Let's not use the word misguided. Or probably it was his momentary lapse of reasoning that he decided that let me take a pre-dated letter, because all my letters are dated 2010 or 2011 when he left. So he wouldn't have probably found anything wrong in taking another letter which is also going to be a part of this whole. And I think that is what most of us impulsive you would want to do, especially when someone is asking you, you think he's doing you a favor by predating it, so you don't mind asking him for a predated. That's how our mind works. Okay, this is HR, after meeting them after 7 years, and look, someone is even ready to predate it for me. Come on, now he's asking me, let me take it. But it backfired. Backfired why? Apparently this was Australian Computer Society was who did the skill assessment for him. They have sent a response which I was quite shocked when I read it myself. It says that during 2000, see, he worked in some steel company, something to do with Visakhapatnam Steels or something like that in Visakhapatnam. Apparently in Visakhapatnam the telephone landlines, the government landlines, were not 8 digits in 2011, it was only 7. But the letterhead had 8 digits. So they said that because the source of the document is suspicious, we do not want to even go into the contents of the document, hence rejected. For me, this was just it's a very small example to tell you how this thin line can, change. See, it's not about reapplication. He can resubmit it. Probably if he had applied through an agent, if he had applied through an RMA agent, the RMA agent is supposed to do his due diligence even before. He's not like when you say a lawyer, you're not the lawyer like an Indian lawyer where you are just appearing before the court of law, you're appearing before the honorable court, whether you are the side of the victim or whether you are the side of the other side. It doesn't matter, you are a lawyer, that's all. But here it's not, and it's not like even if the person who has made the mistake is bailed out, doesn't mean that the lawyer is out of the list or his license is cancelled or whatever, because his job is to save anybody who goes to him. Correct? Nobody can make an opinion about him and tell him that he's a good lawyer or a bad lawyer simply because he saved the wrong or he did not save the right. It doesn't work like that with us. But when we talk about lawyers or when we talk about a migration and RMA agent, it's a little different because they are not the lawyers who are supposed to represent wrong. They are lawyers who are supposed to represent a case to make it easier for the case officer. Though they are not hired by the case officer, they don't belong to their department or anything like that, but they are supposed to be taking, it's like a chartered accountant. A chartered accountant makes a commitment when he is given his professional degree that he will not sign anything wrong. Whether he does it or not does it is secondary. But a lawyer doesn't make a commitment saying that I will not take up cases which he's supposed to take up for anybody. Similarly, here he is actually making a commitment that I will do my due diligence, I will check everything on your behalf, I will put up the paper for you so that your homework is reduced to whatever extent. Now, if that faith is lost in terms of evidence, if there is any evidence that he has worked against it, that's the end of it. He does not have a life in that profession anymore. anymore. He is required to take up examinations. There is, very frequently, I don't know if it is once in a year or once in 2 years, something like that, they are supposed to take up examinations. Then they have their own platform where there, a lot of information which go to them internally from the departments, because they are supposed to be a direct representation, and it is only because of that if there are 50 applications, and probably if they want to do a random audit of finding out the authenticity of your application, if they decide to choose 20, if it is you and me who's making that application as an applicant, see, only 2 people who can make the application, we need to remember that. It is either the applicant himself or an agent who can represent you. And if the agent has done it, if he has to choose 10 out of the 100 who has to do he has to do an audit of the genuinity of the application, probably he will choose 2 from the agent and 8 from outside, and not the other way around. I mean, look at it in our own organizations. Why would we want to audit a performer's job? You're not going to waste your time. You're not auditing because you want to audit, right? It is because you want value addition to that audit. So you would only do it when you find someone not performing or you don't know him. Simple. You don't know him. If you know me, if you have all faith in me, and if I have built the trust, and if I have done everything over a period, then why would you simply go waste your time in testing this angel, rather than you might as well test some unknown devil? Correct? Because you want to know him. So that is where the RMA agent could play a role. But whether it is an agent who is going to play a role or not, why you should pass on your applications. Please don't look at an application as an application, because there are many who think that it is very simple when I read it on the web. Why would I go and pay this kind of money to anybody, whether it is Y-axis, ABC? But then why would I do it is something which should not come in your minds, because the case officer, like I told you, there are small things like this which can go wrong. Like the telephone number is just an episode, but then it is something which we would not have thought of at all. I know cases where font used in the letterhead is not available the days when you have brought that letterhead. We don't realize it. You think you missed a pay slip or you missed a letter, and then you ask, it's simple for them to black date it, and you think it's... Don't do that. There are ways to represent saying that I lost it. I'm getting it now. See, because truth is something which is very simple and easy to... You don't need to remember. But the moment you fake, there are so many... You don't fake it intentionally, but then you think it all falls in place, but it doesn't. And that is something which only expertise can let you know that it is not possible, that is not the way it has to be done. See, at the end of it, there are as many... Y-axis receives about 90,000 enquiries. Now, when we receive 90,000 enquiries, and if I have to talk about facilitating at least about, let's say, even if it is 20%, when I'm doing as many applications, I think I just know what to do in every application. And that's the most important thing, because it's not like buying a product. It's not like buying a product which you can see and feel. So please understand, the advantage we have had in our system is as many of our, let's say at least 30% of our staff who work in the process department, who work on the applications, have been associated with Y-axis for more than at least 5 years. Because here it's not like changing your computer after you feel that, okay, depreciation value is 0, now come, let's buy a new one. It's not like that. The application, ultimately, whoever does it, it's the human intervention which is there, and the biggest asset of this organization are its employees, because here employees, we cannot afford an employee change, because the moment you have an employee change, there is a knowledge change. And this knowledge, I cannot keep it in any library. I can read it from books, I can do whatever, but then it's my application, it's my observation, it's my practice which has brought us to this system. So the bottom line is, what I'm trying to tell you is, of course, we have the RMA agent. He is going to address most of what happens with Australia, what happened. Like for example, yesterday I learned something new from them. I was not aware that apparently with every application, now, if you're married, on an assumption that for the time being you do not want to take your spouse, there is this medicals and police clearance which becomes mandatory, and you have to do it for your family irrespective whether the family is accompanying you or not. Okay? Now, in India especially, we have a very peculiar situation where you have the married, you have the divorce, and you have married but not divorced, but we stay separate. It's a very, you start, it's about 1.5 years, 2 years of process this is. Now, during this 2 years, when your papers are coming to that last, it's enough for one of them to create that little trouble for you. I mean, sadly, we don't think, okay, anyways, we are not doing well with each other as a relationship, but let the application at least go so that one survives. But our logic is, even if I don't survive, I will not let you survive. That's the way it is. So here what happens is, see, these are changes which the RMAs have been able to bring about, I believe. These are changes because they have realized that a lot of applications don't move because of this kind of, having to have somebody else. It can be anybody. It can be, let us not look at it because the relationship is sad. It can be something like the spouse is not there, spouse is working elsewhere in some government organization in Dubai or somewhere where he's not able to come do this. It's so much of a mess and things just get stopped. But then they, as a consortium, have been able to represent these things and have been able to bring about a change. That okay, whoever makes an application, you do your medicals and your police clearance. When you want your spouse to join you later, you can get it done. When you want your children to join you later, and you want to apply for a dependent visa, you can get it done then. Because it's so scary otherwise that I want to go there, I have decided to go there and work, and probably my spouse is not medically fit. See, I'm going there for a living now because I want to take care of this beautiful family, but then doing medicals for both of us and the one who does not, or my parents. I want to take my dependent parent. I can take my dependent parent on my PR if they're completely dependent on me. But at that age, it is very natural with normal symptoms. But then if there is going to be something which requires a lot of medical help, and if medicals are going to fail, the whole application fails if they become a part of my application. But if they are not dependent parents, they are parents but not dependent, then I apply for something called a contributory parent visa. There the medicals and things like that are not integrated with my application, because they are two different applications. You understand? That's a very, this change has been a very good change actually. See, earlier there was no option. Even if the parent is, when you say parent completely dependent, what is the definition? One parent, it cannot be parents, it has to be parent. Because the moment it is parents, they are no longer dependent to you, is how they define it. So it could be either your mother or your father, and you could be the only child, or probably you have siblings, but the majority of them are outside this country or inside Australia. So when there are certain preconditions, they call it a balance of family test. So when this balance of family test you are able to clear, and when you pass out on this balance of family test, you become eligible to apply for an independent parent visa called a contributory parent visa. Okay, there's a temporary contributory parent visa, there is a permanent contributory parent visa. Probably when we have our RMA today, that would be a very interesting thing, because most of us as parents here, you want to send your child today, but then after 20 years what happens, after 15 years what happens? I mean, am I able to go and join them? We all know the truth here is, when it comes to retirement, India is not a great country. Let's accept that. It's not probably, let's dream for the best. Probably after another 30-40 years, our little generation here will make it great for us at least, or probably my children, when they become parents, it will be a different situation is what we're thinking. But otherwise, as of now, the reality is, it is always, you need to look as to how you will be able to permanently move and settle in another country, where as of now, you as an independent person, you as a parent, you are not eligible. It is difficult for you to be eligible because of your age. So it is important for you to, start streamlining. Children today, see, there was a time when children want to go, every neighborhood would talk about the child going abroad and studying is only after their graduation or possibly post-graduation. Today, the moment the child, first of all, doing a state board itself, parents are not very happy, because they're thinking of IG and IGSC and CBSE, and it's just going a different level. Now after 10th, they're not sure whether they want their child to go and do the 11th and 12th in some university in Singapore. Why not? If you can pay that kind of fees in India for private schools, they are kind of mentally preparing themselves and they don't mind. See, because the earning capacity today is not so bad in our country. So while we earn it, only thing before it enters your bank, everything is gone on EMIs and everything is gone on fees and there is nothing left. Otherwise, the logic is your life is something going to be similar, but only thing you're going to save a lot. So when you want to let your kids go, when you want them to start their either on education or is it about their on a PR, start thinking about how it is going to be, whether you can take the generation behind you. Future generation is one thing, will automatically go. But the generation behind you, is it possible? And the generation behind is possible only if you make up your mind and you are able to move now and you are able to settle. Because see, today if I have kids and I want to make an application, it's not difficult. And it's a very important thing because you may not want to go there today. I have a lot of people who come and tell me that we are very settled, why would we go? It's not about you are settled, but why wouldn't you make that asset for your children who will have to wait for another 20 years otherwise? They have to earn those points, they will have to have this experience, they will have to do so much. So is that possible? So when that is not possible and you can do it for them now, remember you can do it for them while you're doing it for you, but you can do it for your generation behind you is only when after you are gone, not when you are here. Unless you have one of the parents, like I told you, who are completely dependent on you, then you can make them a part of your application itself. Now I am believing that these are beautiful changes which the RMAs have been able to bring in. They've been able to represent, they've been able to look at it as an individual situation in each of these countries. They know what is the general trend which is happening and they're able to put all this together and take it from there. Okay? So otherwise in general, how many of you have been already associated with Y-axis? Yeah, which product have you registered with Y-axis?
Australia.
Australia, yeah, very good. What stage has it come to?
The initial
Skill assessment is over. Which assessing body?
ACS.
ACS, good. Yourself? Very good. Which one? Which assessing body? What is your occupation? Huh? ACS. Very good. No, because anything to do with IT, they go under this Australian Computer Society. So with Australia, what happens is it's a three-stage process. Initially, let it be any occupation. You cannot apply for a visa unless you get the certificate from that body which says that your occupation is equivalent to their requirement.
Excuse me?
Yeah.
I'm still in the recruitment sector. When the inquiry about which skills assessment is done for women, it said VET.
Wet assess. That's another
What's the
assessing.
difference between
See, I'll tell you what it is. Now let us assume, hypothetical, that there are about all of us sitting here on different occupations, okay?
Yeah.
Now we are in total, let's say we are about 60 people, okay? Now 60 people are of 60 occupations, okay? Now each occupation is assessed by different assessing body. Now when I say Australian Computer Society cannot assess an occupation of a teacher. He only knows what an IT person can do. Okay? And so likewise, different assessing body. Now, wet assess is an assessing body which takes a few occupations. So you must be under that. What is your occupation? Recruitment, yeah. That is, see, normally sales, marketing, recruitment, HR. These are occupations which come under.
okay, thank you.
Hi. So I'm now that I've told you what Y-axis is all about, I won't take much of your time because we just got them here. Let them take over. Now, yeah, you have.
Sure, yes.
So they will be explaining to you, they will be answering you questions on Australia specific because, like I said, like ACS can do only Australian Computer Society, our RMAs can do only Australia for you because they are migration agents representing and have the license to make an application for Australia PR only. Okay, so any questions on Australia, especially even if you have students who are just going to college and school now and you want to know what their future is, what is that they can do, I mean you can ask them any questions to do with Australia.
for assessment only they have to go along with the agent or immediately?
Not necessary. You can see today is just a seminar since they are here. Are you coming in, right?
Sure.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, I thought you had something and I was.
No,
so,
no, that's fine.
Okay, please. So
Yeah.
what we're going to do is, you can speak to them. You can. I mean, I don't know how the interaction session is going to be with him. Whether he has something to to give us and then start asking you. So take it from there, and I'll see you in a while. Okay. Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you. Hello, everybody. My name is Hemi. Good to see you all. And thanks for your time being here. I'm the registered migration agent working for Y-Access in the Melbourne office. And I'm here today with you all and just to explain to you about Australia's visa program that we have for different kind of people, different skilled migrants, and just give you some ideas about some benefits of migrating and the different classes of visas that we have available for migration. And then I will let you guys to ask me any queries or any questions that you may have. The migration program, that's really designed for people who are skilled people with certain qualifications and work experiences and an exposure to English language ability, where they intend to migrate to Australia on those bases. And I've also dealt with different number of student visas. So student visas are really designed for people who would like to come in and study, undertake quality education. Either it could be tertiary education or university level. And then there are maybe potentially chances for converting student visas to permanent residency while they're there. And I've also assisted with many employment work-related visas. So with the work-related visas, we got temporary work visas and we got permanent work visas in Australia, where the basic requirement is to have a sponsor, or maybe an Australian sponsor, sponsoring candidates, skilled candidates, and those candidates can be granted those visas and to remain in Australia, working for the employer on a temporary and permanent basis as well. So these are really the three main skilled categories that we deal with as part of the Australia Skilled Migration Program. And I've personally had the honour to also assist different clients from India and different nationalities to come in and to contribute to our country. Australia is very welcoming to migrants. We started our migrant intake back in 50s really. So it started with white Australian population, white Australian policy, and then within time it really converted all to multiculturalism that we have now, intake of different number of migrants from all over the world, from different ethnics, different religion, different race. It's a country where it's based on political democracy with stable economy and with good standards, obviously, which may attract different migrants, different people coming in. As part of the migration program, people who are granted permanent residency are entitled to certain benefits in Australia. One of the benefits they would get is access to free healthcare system, or we call it Medicare. So that's really available to any permanent resident who's coming into the country, and they're entitled to that from the first day. That's even available to people who apply for permanent residency and while they're in Australia waiting for their application to be finalised. So they're still entitled to Medicare or public health system. In terms of social security, people with children have access to certain privileges, but people with no children will have to have served the waiting time, which is normally 2 years upon their arrival in the country before they can be accessing the full social security benefits and payments there. A brief introduction of the skilled migration program. The skilled migration program is really, as I said, is designed into different categories itself. So we got both provisional and permanent categories for certain and eligible candidates. We got different lists of occupations available for candidates. So we call them medium or long-term list, and we call it short-term list. So there are over 250 occupations in those lists, which are available for both sponsorship by certain estates and territories and being available for applying independently. It's point test system, so points are assigned and contributed on the basis of different factors. These may be people's age, English language, employment, both Australian employment and overseas employment, education. These are the main ones, and there are also other related factors, including accredited professional interpreting testing, people with partners whose the partners are under 50 and the partners themselves got some skills, so they are alternatively awarded with some points as well. So I'm not really going into detail of them at the moment because it's really case by case and varies depending on individual situation and circumstances. But I'm just giving you a general and brief idea of what those points are. In case we were to have a different consult, obviously either myself or the other RMA who's here today will be briefing you all out about really your situation, personal face-to-face discussion as to what may be the best scenario for you. So the 189 or the independent category is a category where people can apply to come to Australia on the basis of their occupation and the minimum points eligibility, which is 60. And provided their skills are on the main occupation list. So in this category, we're looking at some skilled professional IT and other engineers, some health professionals, nurses, teachers, and some trade professionals like mechanics or chefs, for instance. In the other list, where is the short-term list, we're looking at broader range of occupations, but in order to apply for those occupations, there's a requirement for a state or nomination. So a state or territory has got to nominate people. So again, they got their own criteria of sponsorship. For instance, some states will be requiring some skills, employability. Some states will more worry about finance requirements. So these are again something which is different and varying from state to state. But the good thing about that is there are wide range of broader occupations available for those states to nominate people. So in those categories, not only we look at some professional engineers and doctors, but also we were looking at some more general occupations, including people in the finance industries or sales or marketing industries. So again, the subclass 190 is a permanent residency subclass, it's a skill nominated subclass, and it's a point test system as well. But having the state sponsorship will be awarding candidates with 5 points for permanent residency program. And then the other stream, which is a 489 stream, is a provisional stream, convertible to permanent residency in 2 years. So that's really designed for candidates who's either coming under a regional skill category list of occupations, where those occupations are not available in the PR category list, and also awarding people with 10 points by the regional area state as opposed to 5. So it's more benefiting candidates who by themselves can be awarded or granted lesser points than the other candidates. Another basic prerequisite to apply for migration on the basis of skills is having to complete a skill assessment process. Again, there are different sets of categories and bodies in Australia. We'll be looking at those programs. So IT professionals will be, say, looked at one set of categories and department. Other professionals will be dealt by other departments. So in order to do that, they'll be looking at the candidates' skills, including qualification and work experiences, and to assess the candidate on the basis of equivalency and the same standards of an Australian skills in that particular occupation. So once that process is completed and upon success, the candidate, subject to meeting points, can be applying for permanent residency or the provisional skill program and come into Australia and migrate successfully. And as part of the migration program, because as you may be aware, there's a cap system which is there for people to migrate. So Australia is not really granting unlimited number of visas to a number of people, and that's obviously we'll be looking at settlement issues, we'll be looking at the industry issues, infrastructure. So we were looking at all those factors there, and there are limits and quotas available for every set of occupation that may be able to be migrated to the country. So the system is really designed for the most competitive candidates to be coming in, hence the quotas there for those candidates. So the quotas vary from occupation to occupation. So there are more quotas available for certain number of occupations. There are more demands in there, so which is again reset by the end of each financial year. So the financial year in Australia starts June and ends. Sorry, starts in 1st of July and ends at end of June every year. And by the time the new financial year is to begin, the quotas will be reset. So that's how we would come to know the number of eligible occupations available for a sponsorship and for being applying independently. There are no ceilings as such, or occupational quotas or ceilings, as I mentioned, for estate categories. The reason would be is that the estate may have different demands and more need for certain group of people. So we wouldn't be putting ceilings for the estates every year. Having said that, the estates themselves may be having their own internal quotas and ceilings, which unfortunately is not really publishing out. And then once they reach those ceilings, say prior to the next financial year, they may be stopping to giving out sponsorship to people. Due to the volatile nature of the migration in Australia and different estates, it's highly important that candidates were to apply immediately, as long as they're eligible to be applying for certain type of visas, as the laws may change every July or even every March in every year, hence may be affecting eligibility for many candidates who may have been eligible, say, a year ago, but not in the next year. Likewise, the point system may also vary depending on the demand. So, for instance, an IT professional with 60 points may have got an invitation to apply for visa 2 years ago, whereas we're looking at 65 or 70 today. So this is all depending on the advice of the Department of Home Affairs, previously Immigration, certain industrial relation bodies, a Department of Education, and advice from Department of Employment, and certain estates or territories in Australia. And they'll be looking at different markets there at the time, the demand for certain occupations, the shortage of occupations in the particular estates, hence we'll be advising and giving out these sponsorships accordingly. As we would not know and we cannot 100% anticipate future changes, we only be looking at the today's scenario and advise on immediate submission of an application due to the fact that the progresses or changes are unknown and volatile and to some extent unpredictable. So this is an overview of a skill migration program that I just explained to you about. On the other hand, before you may have any questions, I'll also give you a brief idea of the student visa program while that I'm here today. The student visa program is really an important element to Australian economy. The overseas students are the third biggest revenue and the third biggest market in terms of Australian economy. The number two students that we have coming into Australia are Indians, followed by the Chinese. The Indians coming in to study contribute to the economy. They find employment, and they would have better options and more open options to find employers who may be able to sponsor them and granted visas there. Of course, granting the student visa is again looking at certain criteria, which I'll give you later on a little bit about them. But once someone is in Australia studying in a certain course, they would have better exposure to Australian employment market, familiarizing themselves with the local culture, better exposure to settlement services that may be available to them, including resume writing services, interview processes, and all of that, and more open options to convert their student visas to permanent residency. For instance, an overseas qualified student may find an employer through different testings, may be sponsored and successfully apply for a work visa in Australia, whereas a candidate who is offshore may be more difficult to find an appropriate employer for sponsorship purposes. On the other hand, completing studies after 2 years will somehow automatically grant this qualified student to a skilled graduate visa. A skilled graduate visa is a visa which is giving a 2-year visa to a qualified student, where is more or less exposing the student to the local market, improving their English language ability, exploring options, in other words, in order to be finding a right pathway to be converting their visas to permanent residency, if that's at all an intention. So that's another plus advantage of people who are coming in to study on a student visa from a skilled migration point of view. The other advantage is a grant of additional 5 points on the basis of Australian study. So if any student is in Australia, is studying for minimum of 2 years, the student will be able to claim 5 points extra for skilled migration process at the end of their studies, and subject to meeting certain criteria of the skill assessment authorities and so on. If the student is studying in a regional area, this is another added advantage, as the student will be awarded an additional 5 points for residence and study in regional area for minimum of 2 years. The regional areas are wide in Australia, so apart from a few metropolitan large cities, including Sydney and Melbourne, the other parts of Australia is considered to be regional. The South Australia, for instance, is a full state, and the whole state, including the main city, Adelaide, is considered regional. So by studying in the regional or Adelaide University, for instance, or studying at an Australian National University in the capital city, Canberra, the person will be able to claim 10 points on the basis of their 2 years of study, but also on the basis of their commitment to the regional area for 2 years of studying and residence. There are also additional points available for those candidates who would be studying in a specialized tertiary courses. So the specialized courses are really engineering and IT courses and some science courses, who are masters by research and PhD. So if someone is qualified IT engineer in India and wishing to pursue masters by research in the same field, this is another added advantage, as there is another 5 points additional awarded to the person. So imagine claiming 15 points if studying in the regional area after the 2 years of study. So this is obviously a great factor and contributor to the point test system, which will in turn be increasing the chances of a speedier and more guaranteed invitation, hence applying for the permanent residency. So these are some factors really that some people may be looking at in case they were to be unable or unable really to be applying for permanent residency just by the sake of skilled migration from India. Again, there are students who may be undertaking the PhD courses, as I said. So upon completion of the PhD, there will be 20 points available for qualification, as opposed to having the bachelor's or master's degree. So this is an additional 5 to what's already there for having a bachelor's or master's degree. A brief overview about getting this student visa is not a very stringent process. It's really about getting the confirmation of enrollment from an Australian university or respective colleges. There are wide of them available there. And upon getting the confirmation of enrollment, or COE, we can assist with a student visa application process, which is really processed by the Australian Commissioner in New Delhi. The Commissioner will be looking at your financial capability to undertake your study, as most courses and universities are streamlined these days. So some universities may not even require evidence of financial ability, but may only be looking at your signed undertaking as your ability to contribute to your studies. But again, obviously, this is varying from university to university. At the time of visa stage, so long as the officer is satisfied that your intention is to undertake genuine study, then you will not have any issues with getting your student visas. Now, there are questions sometimes I'm asked that with the intention of applying for a skilled visa after my study is considered non-genuine temporary student, because that's really what my intention is. So the answer is really yes and no, because the Australian government is aware that many of the students are ultimately applying for permanent residency upon eligibility. So there's not really an issue with that. The whole idea is that, is the intention of study genuine? And it is. The fact that the person may be applying for permanent residency is a different thing as a whole, and is not really, as applying for permanent residency is not guaranteed. So as long as that they're happy that you are about to come and study, and yes, if eligible, you may be applying for permanent residency, then there would be no questions about the genuineness of your intention about your studies. I'm not really going into detail of employment visas at the moment, because the basic criteria and the prerequisite to apply for work visa is on the basis of finding employers and then looking at those criteria of employers as well. But I'll give you an overall, very general information about student visa process and skilled migration visa process. If you have any questions at the moment, which is general, feel free to ask me. I'm happy to respond to you. Or if you have any questions about the migration procedures as a whole, again, feel free to ask me, and I'm happy to respond to you. And then if you were to talk about your cases specifically, I believe we can have a different consultation, either myself or my other colleague, so we can assess your personal situations as a whole. So please, if you have any questions, I'm happy to help.
If a student gets to Australia on a PR,
Yes?
and then he wants to go for a tertiary education, say PhD, so would he be treated as an international applicant for the scholarship, or would he be given domestic scholarship?
If student gets a scholarship, then that's considered domestically because it's a scholarship. In terms of applying for permanent residency, then that's a different situation as a whole.
So after applying for a PR,
Yes?
is he eligible to pursue PhD in Australia?
Definitely. Definitely. He's eligible to pursue PhD, and he's considered a local student, not an international student, because the person is a permanent resident of Australia.
So if for applying for the PR, skill assessment is the most first step, I think so.
That's absolutely correct.
So at what stage we should show the financial stability? Before the initial stage, or after skill assessment is done?
Financial stability.
Yeah.
If you are applying for a state nomination, there are only few states which are really requiring an evidence of your financial stability. Not every state is requiring the evidences. And the fact that you're applying a skill assessment is a separate process to your financial stability.
So for this assessment, there is no need to show our financial stability.
No, because the skill assessment is an assessment on the basis of your skills, not an assessment of your financial stability. So they were looking at your qualification, your employment experiences, and in some cases, the English language capability. So obviously, occupations vary. If I were to be applying for nursing skill assessment, one of the elements is registration.
We have one more question.
Yeah, capability. Whereas if I were to be assessed as an IT software engineer, there's no requirement of English language for a skill assessment stage. I'm just an engineer on the basis of my IT qualification or experiences or combination of both. Yes?
Yeah. I worked in 2007 in some company here in Hyderabad itself, but right now it's not existing.
Right.
So what's the reason, the experience data which I have?
Yes.
It's mentioned I work for this company and with this designation. What this Australian body is asking with the letterhead, what are the main duties, there's a different criteria for experience data. That kind of experience data I cannot provide them, so what should I do in that case?
Are you coming from an IT profile?
No, I worked as an HR for a company, that was whole medium-based company, but right now it's not existing, so I cannot get those documents again, it's almost 10 years.
Let me tell you one thing. If the experience is over 10 years, it's not counted anyway.
It's not counted.
No. We're looking at the employment experience in the latest 10 years.
I didn't get it.
So we're looking at the employment from 2008 onwards.
2008.
Yes, yes. Yes, there are situations, say, for IT professionals where we can rely on older experiences for sortability purposes, but really for skilled employment and point purposes, if we talk about, it's really looking at the latest 10 years. So 8 out of the last 10. Okay, so that experience is out of scope anyway, unless it's within the latest 10 years. And if it's within the latest 10 years, then I can explain to you about the requirement separately, because it's really varying from case by case. Yes, the company may not exist, but it shouldn't be disadvantaging you if you've genuinely worked for the company.
Yes, generally.
So as long as it's substantiated,
Yes.
you're not to blame for the company's cessation, correct?
Yeah.
And any other questions?
Sir, how much places are available for HR professionals?
HRs is unfortunately out of the list at the moment, as removed last year. So as I said, even when the HR advisor occupation was in the list, there's no quotas because it was only on the basis of state sponsorship. So long as the state nominates the person, there's no quotas available. You know what I mean? So it's a different class. It comes under 190 subclass. But it's out of the list at the moment. Recruitment consultant is, yeah, but HR, unless you were to apply for regional. And then we again have to look at regional availability of the respective region where there's an availability. But again, you may be able to apply for a skill assessment because we wouldn't know whether the regions may be opening these occupations and when they may be opening it. While you be doing your skill assessment, the outcome is going to be valid for 3 years. In the 3-year period, things may change. The state openings may vary, hence making you eligible to apply, and having this skill assessment outcome is saving you time for making the application. So this is what really the advisor will be giving to our clients. Any other questions?
Yeah, occupations falling under MLT SSL.
Yes.
Are they eligible for 190 and 489 at the moment, based on the new changes?
On the basis of new changes, they are, but the 489 category has got its own list as well at the moment. There are some occupations which are only eligible for 489.
Yeah, for example, systems analyst.
System analyst is available and able to be applied for 189, for 190.
Yeah, 189 is fine, but
190 is fine as long as you get the sponsorship by the state.
yeah, but I heard from a friend like he already applied.
Mhm.
I mean, EY,
Mhm.
but he did receive a message based on the new changes, like the application will be
For system analyst,
for system analyst for
Yeah.
for considering 190 and
Yes.
489.
yes, yes,
At the moment, it will be like in a sleep mode.
yes, yes.
The EY.
Okay. Well, that's strange because that's
Because the occupation was in short term SOL before, I mean last year. For the new changes, it's the occupation has been put into the MLT system. Medium and long term.
system analyst has been in MLT SSL and short-term list all the way along for the past few years. So the management consultant would have moved to the MLT-SSL, but not system analyst. So system analyst is fine to be sponsored by the states for 190. At the same time, is eligible for 189 category.
They can get an invitation as well. I mean, system analyst can get an invitation.
Absolutely.
According to the new changes.
Absolutely. The changes hasn't really affected much for system analysts because
it's been moved from short term to
No,
medium
it's-
and long term, right?
no, it was on the short term as well previously.
Previously it was on short term.
Yes, on both. Please.
But now it's not on short term.
No, it is still available for sponsorship. So it's really available for both. Yes, it is available for both the long term, which is the independent category, and the short term as well.
So can system analyst look for some other visas at the moment for industrial migration?
Of course.
Apart from 190 and 489?
Of course, so long as a sponsorship a state sponsors the occupation.
What are the other visas available?
Other visas,
Yeah.
except the skill visas, you mean?
Under this skill migration, apart from 190 and 489, are there any other visas which can be applied?
Well, there are employment sponsored visas under the skill visas. So that's provided that the candidate is finding an employer for sponsorship. That's really the other options then, based on the skill visas.
Because it's only 60 points and I don't think can get an invitation for 60 points at this moment.
At this moment, 60 is a little bit hard, to be honest, though it's minimum,
Yeah.
legally fine,
Yeah.
but it's a little bit hard because of the quota. And it's really not about the quota, it's also about every month's invitations that the government is issuing. So the numbers is varying, unfortunately, from time to time. So you may know already that the invitations are occurring twice in a month.
Yeah.
And there's a cap there of the total number which is happening. So if the number is high, the chances of invitation with 60 is going high.
Yeah.
But the number is dropping, then that's going to be affecting the whole thing. And there's an internal record there which unfortunately they're not giving out as to why is this happening at the moment. Having said that, it's not a close end to things because this again may vary. The government is resetting their occupation ceilings every July, and there's a quota available which they got to be giving anyway. So in the next month, for instance, they may be compensating for the lesser invitations by issuing more invitations. Hence, the ones with 60 or 65 may get the invitation and applying for visa. It's just a process that we are unsure, which is why it's important that the person is applying for a skill assessment and at the same time submitting the EOI, though it's 60 or 65. As the invitations may not be happening this month, may not be happening next month, because the total number would have been 300 or 340. But in the month of May, it may be going back to 2,500, where it was May last year, for instance. Hence, it will be coming in and affecting many applications, so many invitations happening. Any other questions? Sure.
What about the education of kids?
Public school is free. Yes, public school is free. Once the person is a permanent visa holder, their education in a public school or government school is complimentary.
If you are on a student status and the family is with us.
Student status, well, that's can be harder because students are considered to be international. So there are provisional visas, like provisional business visas or provisional skill visas or provisional work visa, like previously 457, where the students could still benefit from the free education, but with the student visa holders, it's a little bit different story. So if you hold a provisional visa, not a permanent residency, your child can still undertake the free education.
Coming to point system.
Yes.
Currently, it is less than 32 age.
Yes.
We have different kind of point system, right?
Correct.
So, yeah. Currently, if I'm 31 and after 2 months, if I'm 32, so when the age factor considers in the process?
Before you're 33.
Yeah.
So you have another 1 year.
Yeah. No, within 2 months, if I get into the
Yes. Okay, I got your question now. It's at the time of invitation. Yes. So it's not at the time of applying for the visa.
Yeah, yeah.
It's a time of invitation to apply for the visa. That's where they'll be looking at. If you get the invitation today, and you on base of 30, the maximum, and then the next day, before applying, your age changes, it's not going to affect you. Any other questions?
Yeah, I have.
Sure.
You just mentioned that it is nowadays difficult to get the ITL with the 60 points.
Yes.
So how NATI accreditation is going to help to increase their points? How difficult or how easier it is to get the NATI accreditation for a profession which is not exactly into this linguistic professions, like a teacher or like a English language teacher.
Or translator.
Translator.
Yes,
So
yes.
how easier it is for a HR professional or an IT professional to accredit that NATI accreditation?
Very good question. Individual skills in translating or interpreting skills vary. They vary. But I would always say, if someone is in a position to gain IELTS 7 each band or PTE 65, would be in the same position to gain 90 accreditation too. That's really what my understanding is of 90 accreditation. You don't have to be a translator to gain 90 accreditation. You don't have to be a professional interpreter. So long as you have capability of comprehending and communicating your own local language with English, that's what you're being tested, basically. And yes, it is a possibility that you can be looking at 90 accreditation. Hence, we awarded the additional 5 points as well. I've seen many clients with lesser English capability have already got their 90 accreditation with their local languages.
But not all the local languages are included in that.
That's correct.
Example is Telugu.
Not to.
I don't think there is.
I don't think, yes.
Hindi is there.
Indeed.
National language is there.
The national language
Tamil
is there.
but
Yes.
not Telugu.
Correct.
Understand.
Not every language. That's also true. Correct. Yes.
So,
Any other questions?
Are the certifications adding value to the employment opportunities
To some extent, and for some occupations, yes.
for a software engineer?
There are some recognized Microsoft or Cisco qualifications, which is adding value. They're considered vendor qualifications. The other certificates, no, it's not going to be adding any values. Any other questions?
What is the age criteria, sir? 230 limitation.
Age criteria. Well, we're looking at 45, the top end, where people can get the invitation. And we're looking at 18 at the lowest. So that's the range we're looking at. But then the points are varying. Say someone with 30 years old will be getting a maximum, with someone with 44 years old will be getting the minimum 50 points for age. Any other questions?
There are some professions like architects and dentists in Australia.
Not agreeing 100%, yes, but I know where you're coming from, yes.
For the PR process,
Yes.
is it a bit different from a typical IT or an engineer, or how does it work?
It is, for those two particular
Right.
occupations, it is a different process, but a registration is not a mandatory requirement for those two occupations. And then you are granted a successful provisional qualification assessment outcome. That will be allowing you to apply for permanent residency, although you're not registered architect in Australia. Once you are in Australia as a PR holder and if aiming to work as an architect, then you'll be looking at registration process. As again, the registration process is varying from estate to estate. Any other questions? Any other questions?
Sir, IELTS exam is compulsory to do job in Australia.
To do jobs? Why would it be?
So IELTS entrance is compulsory to do job.
Not to do jobs. It's really compulsory to get an invitation to apply for a skill visa. But once you're in Australia, depending on the profession you want to do, you don't necessarily need an IELTS to do the profession, do you? There are many people with limited English language capabilities in good occupations.
For sponsorship, job holders also IELTS is required.
Yes, different states having their own criteria, but they will be still looking at the department's criteria, normally in terms of English language proficiency. Any other questions today before I may having my other team to come in and say yes?
I've already entered into the criteria for eligibility test.
Right, right.
I'm qualified for that. I got 65 points.
That's wonderful.
My question was like I'm having a few things to be completed over here in India. Can I do this thing like I got for my family and I'm eligible for that?
Okay.
If I'm a primary
Yes.
applier.
Yes.
So if I go there with my family,
Right.
is there any option that I come back within the limited time what they asked for me for the PR, and the dependent who are there, they can continue there? Is there any option like
Absolutely.
that? Or is it like I have to come back with the whole family?
No, no. Your family can be there.
Can be there.
Correct.
And can the dependent work over there?
Absolutely. You're granted the permanent residency as a family,
Okay.
and although you are the main applicant,
Mm-hmm.
and the family is granted the PR on your basis,
Mm-hmm.
they are individuals.
Okay.
So they're not bound by the 7 criteria of dating criteria. So you can make the entry with them, or you can make the entry without them, and they can join later. The key factor is making the first entry within the particular date.
Yes.
So that's the only key factor there.
Okay.
Once that's happening, what you do next is your personal matter.
Thank you so much.
Any other questions? So you have 60 days to apply for that. So you will be applying for the visa, you get the visa. The moment you get the visa, you normally have 9 months to make the entry. But that's an average processing time. So we need to again be looking at the date you applied for, and how long did it take, and when did you do your medicals at character. Sometimes it may be shorter, but that's the average we're looking at. So any other general questions about the skill categories, student categories, provisional or permanent residency, the migration system as a whole? If no general questions, then I may be getting my gentlemen to be discussing further. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
So we have our agents here, both of them. So I would recommend, if you want a personalized consultation based on your profile, in terms of your eligibility or your factors or anything, you can have a consultation with them. You can register in the front office there. Okay, they will assign a consultant to you, and the consultant will explain it to you, and you can have a personal consultation with our agents. We have 2 agents already available here. So whoever are interested now can you can register over there. All right. Okay. Thank you so much for coming. You'll wait for a long time. Okay. Basically, I'm Karthik. I'm the senior manager here. I work from the Dubai office. Okay. The reason for us to conduct this seminar is to give awareness about what exactly happens in terms of documentation when you represent a registered migration agent. So right now, who we have here is they are the people who are actually representing an application on behalf of the client. That is you all. So when they represent an application to an embassy, it's like a license kind of a thing. Like you hiring a lawyer in order for you to get your application processed, in a court. That's how it works in immigration. Only the terminology differs, but they are like the immigration lawyers. Now, what is that they do? Now, what is the difference So if in India, basically, if you look at it, like in Dubai, unlike Dubai, you cannot start up a company and start taking application as a consultant unless and until you have a registered migration agent and your company is registered. So as to the embassy also should know, okay, Vax is a registered company. They are representing through a lawyer. So even the case officer knows Vax. That's how that many number of applications we process. So if we talk about how many number of applications we process more than 350 to 400 applications per month. I'm talking about a lawyer, a single lawyer, applying it. We have 3 actually Arabic consultations here. Whom you want, if you want, you can have a personalized consultation. But what I would recommend is, openly you can, have, because they are here, in terms of your documentation, what it will take you to apply for the PR, first point. When you are applying for PR, what are the critical documents which are required to apply for this PR? Third point, when you are applying that, what are the other hurdles you will face in the process? Or how an embassy looks at an application. These are the questions they will be able to, give you a complete information on. Now, apart from all these things, now we know only one category that, every human tendency that we have an intention to work abroad. Now, that is our objective. Now, in order to reach that, what all ways we have to actually reach that particular destination? As of now, everyone knows there is a PR program in place. But there are other things called study, you have work. Okay, you have exceptional talent visas. You have so many things, and you have provisional visas, which is not a PR. But for example, now there is a cutoff for a particular age in order for you to apply for a PR. Now I am not meeting that age criteria. When I don't meet that age criteria, how is that I can compensate with my skill or my experience? Experience is our skill. How will I compensate that and then present the application to the embassy? So all these particular questions. And not only that, in terms of applying Australia, now each and every person has a different skill. Which skills has more value in terms of when a case officer is looking at an application, which skills add more value? Or which are the areas which we can contribute more to make our application stronger? So the objective and vision for everyone is to get that destination of a permanent residency. Now how to get that is what meanwhile the process and application happens. Now, presenting that application, RMA comes into picture. One more important point I want to give it to you is there is something called as immigration law, right? So when you hire a lawyer, there are 2 options here. Option either we fight our case by ourselves, according to Indian law also, either we can fight our case or we can hire a lawyer. It's up to us. Same when an embassy also is looking at an application, if a person is applying by their own or they are using a lawyer, there's a huge difference. So that is the difference is what it will make when you are applying it through using a registered migration agent. You can sit here. Yeah. So now what anyways one of our agent would be coming and discussing with you all. Okay, they'll explain you the entire process of immigration, how it works. They'll also let you know what all things are required to apply for this PR. Plus I would also encourage if you have any kind of questions, you can without hesitating you can ask that. Please do not think it might be silly or anything, because according to immigration, there is nothing called a silly question. Because we are talking about our career and future, so it's very important for us to clarify everything before. Now, once you have finished with that consultation, we have our agents who can have a free counseling with you. You can again have a detailed discussion on the process, how it works and all. Or if you want to have a one-on-one consultation, we can arrange it out, that also. Okay? So he'll be coming in 2 minutes. I'll just send him, and you can talk to him and you can clarify. All right?